Supa Strikas is undoubtedly one of the biggest fictional series worldwide and one of the biggest in all of Africa. Given the series' premise was connected to the average African footy fan, it wasn't a surprise how well the show got on with people. However, whilst most are familiar with Supa Strikas' comic dominance in the motherland, not many know how they were able to rise into this monumental status. From the characters to the storylines, Supa Strikas did it all correctly on paper. They did exactly what they needed to do. Additionally, the creators of the series did one simple thing that changed the trajectory of the series forever.
I'm finally here. My heart is pounding. 50,000 fans screaming. I can't get my breath. The whistle sounding. With every ounce of effort, every skill that I've got, I'll play the Super League's greatest, give them my best shot. Every minute of the 90, now I'm gonna be a fighter. 'Cause 1, 2, 3, I'm a Supa Striker.
It's still unclear how the origin of the Supa Strikas series came about. With a divide of conflicting sources, many believe that the series was first created in the late 90s in Nigeria, but was eventually bought out by a South African publishing company in 2001. Other sources claim that the comics were developed in South Africa from minute one in the early 2000s. Regardless of incongruous reports, there's a common theme between the two claims. A theme that really separates Supa Strikas from other football media at the time. Its Pan-African roots. In spite of the unknown origin story of the creation of Supa Strikas, the purpose of the series was simple: creating a story for young Pan-African children to connect their love for football with the comic book lifestyle. But what was the fascination of Supa Strikas with Pan-African children? What was the story even about? The plot of Supa Strikas was very simple. It followed the entity that was Supa Strikas, one of the best football clubs in the world that participated in the Super League division, a fictional football league inspired by the Club World Cup. With the titular connotation of being dubbed the world's greatest, the comics mainly followed how the team trained on a day-to-day basis for their league games, emphasizing on teamwork, confidence, culture, and style. The main character of the series, Shakes, was a poster boy of the team, arguably the team's best player and the central figure in most of the series plotlines. The storylines will sometimes focus on tactical discipline and game plans to beat others, led by manager, coach, and team captain Dancing Rasta. Other plot points will connect to other footy related themes, such as fanfare, players experiencing bad form, football culture, and etc. Real things that actually happen in football that usually aren't displayed in football media. However, as realistic as Supa Strikas tend to be with some of these story narratives, it does have a fictitious level of grit that comics like Spider-Man and such thrive in. Villainous antagonists such as the rival Invincible United, who always try to cheat their way to glory, or Nakama, but more specifically Nakama's coach, Uragiri, who would purposely try to sabotage his opponents against his own players' wishes. The expense of each storyline, as well as connecting the players to the readers with the element of surprise for each storyline, made Supa Strikas a frequent pickup for many readers at the time. The comic was so captivating, it made the common reader invested on what would happen in the next issue. Before we delve into what made Supa Strikas so special, I think there's an importance on how some of the characters are portrayed, so it's only fair that you, the viewer, understands who each character is and what they represent. Shakes is one of the main characters of Supa Strikas, as stated previously, the poster boy of the team. He is the representation of what Supa Strikas is all about: hard work, honesty, humbleness, determination, team player. In contrast, he does showcase adventurous and overconfidence at times, as well as low confidence at times as well. Wearing jersey number 10, Shakes is fast, witty, and famous for his powerful, accurate shots, as well as his overhead and bicycle kicks. To be completely honest with you, it's crazy how many times Shakes has dropped stinkers throughout matches and covered them up because he would score a bicycle kick or something. I won't forget, I pay attention to those. He has a strong bond with his teammates and a fierce rivalry with Skara, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Dancing Rasta is the calm and collected captain of Supa Strikas, known mainly as the anchor midfielder of the team, a precise passer of the ball, as well as a deep-lying playmaker. He's often underrated by many Supa Strikas fans due to the flair and excitement from the likes of players like Shakes, El Matador, Twisting Tiger, Cool Joe, and etc. Rasta plays a pivotal role in connecting with Shakes and other Supa Strikas players from a player-to-player point of view, which is inherently very important throughout the series, and just important in general when it comes to football. Coach is, you guessed it, the coach of Supa Strikas. Known for his tactical approaches and deep understanding of the beautiful game, Coach is considered one, if not the best manager in the whole Super League. Probably why he's just called Coach. Despite his serious exterior, he has a genuine care for his team, often speaking to them on the human side as well. Skara is Shakes' antagonist and current rival who plays for Supa Strikas' biggest rivals, Invincible United. Skara and Shakes had a rocky relationship once upon a time. They were best friends, though due to personal and moral differences, they grew distant, with Skara, who was once at the Supastrikas Academy, joining Invincible United after Shakes started receiving the attention he so desperately wanted. Now, from a footballing point of view, it does make sense. You gotta play where you want it. Yet, it does leave a gray area on a friendship level. There are several other important characters in the show as well, such as Spenza, who's Shakes' best friend, El Matador, Cool Joe, and Twisted Tiger, who are all teammates of Shakes and Supastrikas. However, one particularly mysterious character stands out and deserves a closer look. His name, Jomo. Jomo was a Supastrikas player in the past, winning countless championships and being looked as a legend at the time for the game. He and Coach were even teammates pre-Super League era. But one day, Jomo mysteriously disappears towards the latter stages of his career, with no one knowing his whereabouts. Why am I stating this? Because Jomo is actually Shakes' father, and Shakes' end goal in the comics is to find out exactly what happened to his father. Supastrikas really started to make a name for itself within the mid-2000s. Initially having small panels within local newspapers, the series got big enough where they could provide their own magazine issues without the reliance of a news coverage print. The comics started to trickle up from South Africa to other places throughout the continent: Kenya, Zambia, Nigeria, Ghana, and many other countries in the sub-Saharan. The comics was widely distributed and easily accessible across local outlets. For example, many Nigerians found these in their local ShopRites or Mr. Biggs. The comic was spreading like wildfire, and almost every sub-Saharan African child at the time had probably seen or heard of Supastrikas. It was a strategic marketing move by the Supastrikas developers, as they knew their target audience were the children of parents that would go to local ShopRites or Mr. Biggs or local corner store markets on a Sunday after church. Some places were even giving it away for free, with a meal purchase at a restaurant or alongside a newspaper purchase. The Supastrikas had a monthly circulation exceeding 1.1 million copies per month as early as 2002, with the comics not only capturing the imaginations of young readers but also establishing itself as a dominant force in the African media industry. Transitions from print to television has always been how series made their big leap to mainstream media. With that knowledge, the people behind the Supastrikas series knew that this is what they needed to do next. Given the success of the Supastrikas comic brand, Striker Entertainment, which was the company behind the comic, partnered with Animation Studios. Animation Studios, for those who aren't familiar, is a Malaysian animation studio that specializes in creating cartoons and animated content within the global audience. They developed the first and official animated Supastrikas series in 2008 that followed similar stories to the Supastrikas comic. The show westernized so many of the elements that made Supastrikas truly connected to its African roots, though we'll talk about that in a bit. The success of Supastrikas in the Pan-African region was key to the show gaining distribution and broadcast rights internationally. In South Africa, the show was broadcasted on SABC1 and SABC2, later moving on to Cartoon Network and Disney XD. In Southeast Asia, it was broadcasted on Disney Channel and Star Sports Asia. In Zambia, it premiered on ZMBC. In India, it premiered on Nickelodeon. The show was rapidly increasing its global audience. Almost 10 years later, the show started broadcasting episodes on YouTube for free. To increase the brand even more, Striker Entertainment eventually partnered up with Moonbug Studios for broadcasting rights, the same company known for broadcasting the Cocomelon series on YouTube and on television as well. Moonbug holds a commanding presence in the YouTube when it comes to Supastrikas, with their channels each drawing millions of viewers, dominating the search results for Supastrikas series. Commercially, the creators of Supastrikas were doing everything they were supposed to do, from growing their brand through sheer exposure, whether it was how they distributed the comics to how they created their own cartoon series. In some issues of earlier episodes, they even partnered with real-life companies to have their sponsor displayed on their jerseys, similar to clubs in real life. But how did their commercial growth hurt the relationship with the original fans? You know, the ones that were buying the comic when it first came out in the early 2000s. Well, it's only normal for a series to lose its core audience depending on how long the series goes on for, except for One Piece. However, there's always an underlying reason for the shift in viewers. It may narrow down to some outgrowing the source material. It may be due to others just not having the time to engage with said material the same way they did when they were first interested or when they were just younger. And whilst the shift in audience in Supastrikas' case may be due to those factors, I personally believe it may be because of how they conveyed the cartoon and later comics in comparison to the earlier issues. Supastrikas was special to many thanks to how well it presented Pan-Africanism. A young African boy in Shakes was living the dream of millions of boys and girls worldwide, playing football. The comics were so specialized in Africa that they individually localized the comics depending on what country it was being sold in. For instance, Shakes had different names varying depending on which country the comics were published in. In Nigeria, his name was Shaggy's Okoro, a name with both Yoruba and Igbo roots. In the Zambian comics, Shakes was called Shakes Musonda, a last name common with Zambian roots. In South Africa, Shakes is called Shakes Mokena. And it wasn't just Shakes. Dancing Rasta, Cool Joe, and Big Bo all had different names. More African names than what we know them as today. Though this may be something small for many, this was an important move in the Supa Strikas playbook. Representation in media is very important and it can be pivotal for the business in the long run, and that is exactly what made Supa Strikas so special. Compared to the other comics, Supa Strikas felt like a series of players and people you knew. Knowing that Supa Strikas as a brand that built itself in African football, it was quite strange that they wanted to step away from what made the comic one of a kind in the first place when it came to designing the animated series. They made some of the international characters like El Matador, Clowns, Twisting Tiger, and etc. mainstays on the show. They made Cool Joe Brazilian, the Captain Dancing Rasta Jamaican, and Coach, who has a different surname depending on which region you bought a comic in, just called Coach. Not only did they emphasize on the show being more attained to an international audience, they removed a lot of the swagger that the comics had when they were specialized in Africa. There were quite a few characters who actually don't return to Supa Strikas when they become more international. Chippa was the main striker prior to the Super League era. One of the plot lines of the comic involves Kenya making an appearance at the Africa Cup of Nations. Shakes and Chippa, Supa Strikas star strikers, end up lost in the Sahara thanks to the Mosetti's plot to become Kenya's main forward. I don't know who Mosetti is, I'm not really too sure. I think that might be Skara. The two eventually escape the desert, arrive just in time for the final, and are subbed in at halftime with Kenya trailing. Despite being exhausted, they scored the goals that completed a dramatic comeback and win the tournament for Kenya. It's presumed that Shakes and Chippa are localized to be from the country over where the comic is located. That's why they're Kenyan in this version, and maybe in other versions they're from South Africa or Nigeria, depending on, obviously, where you read the comic. This plotline was subsequently used in the animated show. However, Chippa is replaced with El Matador, and the strikers come in for a Supa Strikas match instead of an Africa Cup of Nations final. Other characters like Mark Anderson also used to play for Supa Strikas prior to the Super League era. We understand the rationale behind Striker Entertainment to expand their series internationally, as it would bring more children worldwide to watch their show, if they had characters that were more relatable. On the other hand, I do believe the show would have done just as well had they kept all the characters African. I don't like the idea of removing the swagger and coolness that the older Supa Strikas comics used to have to appease their Americanized Western audience. Though the show was quite good, I can only imagine how much better the original and early Supa Strikas comics were. I even noticed that in the earlier seasons of Supa Strikas, the characters had a little bit of a South African twang when they spoke, completely removed in later seasons.
Whoa, Dancing Rasta's skill is unbelievable. Come on, El Matador, let's play. Cosmos better be ready for the full force of Supa Strikas.
Though I haven't read the comics, from reading screenshots and understanding the point of view of people who have seen both, there's an understanding that the comics were a lot more serious compared to the show during its early time. There was a whole plotline of Soipe, which is a Supa Strikas player before the Super League era, who was in love with Shake's girlfriend, Carl. That would have been an interesting plot point to see, but I doubt Moomba would have even approved that. There was also a cartoon teaser released in 2006 that looked like it focused on Supa Strikas before the Super League, or at least early Super League. While the animation style hasn't exactly lasted a test of time, the cartoon carried a much more serious tone, something that would have absolutely grabbed the attention of older Supa Strikas fans. I do hope Supa Strikas eventually takes a more serious route. It seems relevant for the show ended in 2020, so it's very unlikely anytime soon, but you never know. There are some interesting storylines throughout the comics, it seems like, and it's kind of sad that pre-Super League comics were lost media. So if you guys have any copies that you'd like to share or discuss about in the comments down below, let me know. I'm considering making a Discord for people to discuss Supa Strikas as well, so stay tuned for that. Supa Strikas, with a mysterious origin story and arbitrary lifeline, is by far the biggest comic to come out of Africa, almost to the point where they were selling millions on a monthly basis. A cartoon show that has culturally impacted kids worldwide till this day, as their YouTube channel averages hundreds of thousands of views weekly. I do think Supa Strikas as a series is a big enough where they can get countless reboots and adaptations like other shows like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Power Rangers and Spider-Man. Who knows? We might get a little more cohesive and serious Supa Strikas iteration that can really mark a statement for the Supa Strikas brand. Let me know if you would like to see something like that in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video. I know it's been a very, very long time since I made like a true video. I think I want to say, what, 2 years, almost 3 years now. So I wanted to come back with a little bit of a bang, something that you guys are very familiar with. So yeah, it's the start of something new. I do plan on uploading this channel, but not as frequently as you'd want me to. I think I'm gonna keep it like maybe once a month, maybe once or twice a month when it comes to the uploading schedule, because I want to make sure the videos are really well made. This video specifically was very, very more documentary, serious toned, which I want to see how I'm experimenting with things. I want to see if that's something you guys would like to see more, maybe a little bit more jokey. I don't know. I'm still trying to test things out. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. If you guys didn't see the update video, you should check it out. But basically, I'll be focusing on video essays and commentaries with football, the footy media specifically, like gaming, anime, TV, comics, but obviously football related. And Supa Strikas was like the perfect show to set the tone with, because it's something that a lot of you guys are familiar with, and it's also falls in the media world that I'm trying to talk about. I do plan on opening channel memberships. I think right now I'm having 2 tiers. I'm thinking of having 2 tiers. One basic, that's gonna just be like the minimum payment, like $1 or something, and then an elite that's gonna give you guys extra perks about certain things. I'm thinking about how I'm gonna like operate that. I'm thinking about the prices as well, but I'll let you guys know, of course, how I'm gonna do that. And then let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to talk about any other shows, movies, games, footy related that you think deserve the I guess the commentary that it so rightly deserves. Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.